Hello. John, you're back. Welcome
Yeah,
back.
it feels good. Feels good to be back. Thank you for having me. Been too long.
Yeah, I'm so glad to have you back. We'll go into where you've been in a second, but we're very excited to have John back. And we're going to be doing some fun optimization planning goals, FinOps goals in this session. So if you are early in the year, like a lot of our customers are, and you are thinking, how do I plan for 2024? How do I make sure I achieve my goals? And that is what we'll be covering. But before we do, I have to do a little shout out for the Ipswich AWS user group meetup that I hosted a meetup with them the other day. It was at University of Suffolk, and they gave me a mug, guys. You know how much I love swag. So drinking my hot coffee out there. So yeah, just shout out to those guys. Really good meetup. And a general shout out, if you're watching the show and you want to learn more about general AWS, you want to learn about specific subjects, or you want to present, if you want to share some amazing story of what you've done in your environment, reach out to your local user group meetup. There are so many, and get involved and start presenting, because it's a great way to meet new people and learn from each other. But John, back to you. Where have you been? What's been happening?
Yeah. So we took a little bit of a break at the end of last year. My wife and I just welcomed our second son. So as we've got a toddler, and he calls him Sweet Baby Cameron. So we got Sweet Baby Cameron,
Oh,
in our house now. He's just a little bit more than 3 months old. So the dust is settling a little bit, getting like a little bit more sleep. I think we still got plenty of coffee kind of going around, but yeah, it feels good to be kind of getting back into the swing of things and starting the new year.
nice. Well, we are very happy to have you back. And as always, we're excited to get into the show. So welcome everyone to the Keys to AWS Optimization, the show where we share stories, concepts, and solutions to help you unlock your spend at AWS. My name is Steph Gooch. I'm a senior optimization advocate, and I work with all you lovely people to help you optimize your spend. John?
Yeah, and my name is John Massey. I'm a principal optimization solutions architect, also on the optics team, and happy to be here and kind of talking through this one this time around, Steph.
Yes. So as always, if you have any comments, questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. We want to hear from you. If you are watching live, join in the conversation, answer a question in the poll, and just generally get involved. Or if you're watching on YouTube or the brand new Spotify, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you can stay up to date with all the things that we post on there. And as always, if you have any follow-up questions, you want to get in touch, email us at costoptimization@amazon.com. and let us know how we can help you. We've got some highs. Hey, people. Oh, Alex is here. Oh, hey, Alex. Alex is down on the views. That's great. Okay, so, John, we were chatting this morning about what to cover in this episode, and you made a really good point. I'll let you kick it off with what you wanted to talk about today.
Sure. Yeah, I think as we start to kind of end our year, a couple months back, we start to anticipate kind of what's going to happen start of the year for a lot of our customers. And I don't know if you have the same experience, Steph. I'm curious, if you see the same thing with your customers, but like past couple of years have noticed that there's a bit of a trend where, new year comes around, people are looking at their goals, and I kind of like joke around where it's like, walking into the gym, January 1st, where, everyone's kind of like really focused on kind of like, tackling those resolutions and, working on their fitness. We see the same thing with people working on their financial fitness with their cloud accounts. Like, new year, new them, want to start, revisiting cost efficiency, and starting to build kind of like a plan around that for the year. But first off, like, do you see the same thing with your customers? Is there like a bit of a focus, on that kind of hygiene at the start of the year?
Yeah, definitely. And I think we've got a couple of customers who reach out, like we have planning. How do we do stuff? Maybe I'll touch on it a bit later. We have a customer who's planning to do Graviton migration, and they really want to have all the data, all the information up front so that they know what is actually achievable this year. So it's a really great way of kind of planning it. And the same for a lot of our other customers that we have specifically reached out to in the new year. So something we're trying to do more proactive is go out and say, hey, what are your goals? What do you want to do? Have you thought about it? And help them kind of plan that kind of thing. So with that, today, we're going to give you 5 steps into creating your goals for FinOps. And so we've come up with these, and hopefully you can utilize these to kind of give you a bit of a structure. But before we do, let's go in for a poll, because I really enjoyed John's analogy a second ago of kind of the New Year's resolution. So let's go into Twitch, buddy. So do you have a New Year's resolution? 1 for yes, 2 for no. I don't actually think I have any New Year's resolutions. So comment in the chat, 1 for yes, 2 for no, if you have any. John, do you actually have any New Year's resolutions?
I do, yeah. So my New Year's resolution this year is to get back into cooking more food at home. And like used to love like kind of like making different dishes and stuff like that. It slipped, got kids, get busy, you know. So I want to go back to that. I miss it. I remember, you know, doing that on the optics team, like learning from you, Steph, you know, some of the stuff that you used to do with bacon and stuff like that. So I kind of want to get my hands dirty in the kitchen again.
Shout in the chat if you want me to do a baking live Twitch episode one time. That would be that would be funny. Drop a cake emoji in the YouTube comments.
Yeah.
A lot of people there didn't have them, so it's interesting to see the kind of change. I feel like it used to be very focused on New Year's resolutions. Awesome. Thank you guys for dropping in that chat. Okay, so let's kick off with number 1. So John, do you want to kick us off with the first tip?
I'm trying to remember what we started with for our first tip. Oh, so our first tip here, I think we want to like take maybe a bit of a step back, as I missed one of the points that, you know, we had talked about kind of like leading into this.
Right.
And we had started, you know, kind of talking about getting into the swing of optimization, kind of building a plan, forward looking, you know, strategy based stuff. And I think you made a comment that, you know, kind of don't rush on that, right? You know, we don't want to start off with our plan kind of being rushed. And going back to our gym analogy, you know, if you overtrain at the start of the year, you start hitting the gym, you know, every single day, maybe you didn't have a plan that you were sticking to, you might get hurt, you know, things might not go as smoothly as you were expecting. So, you know, I think making sure that we're not rushing is kind of first and foremost, you know, why we're leading into these, you know, 5 steps or 5 tips and tricks. But I think our first one, correct me if I'm wrong, Steph, you know, starting with, you know, data drives decisions, and looking at the data, you know, as kind of our starting point, and knowing where we're beginning.
Yes, exactly. So step 0 is don't rush. And I think step 1, data drives decisions. It's great that Alex is here, because that is her phrase. I use that all the time. Shout out Alex. But data drives decisions. So before you even start making a goal, don't just think, oh, I'm going to do this. And I think I'm going to stick with my gym analogy. It's like me saying, I'm going to lift 300 kilos this year. If I don't look at the data of my last couple of years, taking into consideration kind of my regular growth over my last couple of years, my normal growth in a deadlift is 10 kilos a year, mine 175. I'm probably not going to get to 300 this year unless I start doing some crazy stuff. So looking at the data to help influence your decision is going to be really important. So for you guys out there, checking out the cost and usage report, checking out the new look back of, is it 2 or 3 years on Cost Explorer, and see kind of what trends have you got that you can actually analyze and go into that data and figure out what is going to be a good goal for you to have and what you can focus on.
Yeah, I think one thing we've also seen customers do that, I really like, and I think it's a good practice, is like establishing that baseline. So where are you today as well, right? You know, you want to be able to measure that progress in a month, 2 months, 6 months, whatever. So having a baseline of where you're at today, looking at all the tools you just mentioned, and kind of getting that snapshot point in time. So another good one to kind of have that beginning watermark.
Yeah, and I mean, shout out to the KPI dashboard, and we'll get Richard to get the link for that just in case. I've got to mention the dashboards, haven't we? So having those kind of things, they can help you really look back at what you've been doing and make sure that you can kind of set that baseline. Because if you want to start using the same way, actually, John and I were talking about a customer event I'm going to do, and that there's no point us doing a session on storage if we look and they're using $10 worth of S3, because kind of focus your optimization opportunities.
Yeah, that's another one too. I think there's like going back to the data, it's a balance between maybe perception and also, you know, where the real opportunities lie. We can see customers sometimes where, you know, maybe they're thinking about a point in time where maybe there was a cost spike with storage that they remediated, but if that's solved and that's, you know, kind of not really an issue going forward, revisit the data and find out what the next steps are, as opposed to maybe just what you experienced in the past.
Yeah, definitely. And there's the KPI dashboard. So if you haven't got any of the dashboards and you're like, how do I start planning? Check this one out below. As always, all show notes, I'll put all the links in the chat So you can check them out there if you're watching us after today's live. Okay, so the second one that we came up with was look backwards at what went well. So one thing, and we want to dive in this one a little bit more than just kind of look at data, is look for your success stories. So often when we talk to customers about kind of champions in their organization or how to develop FinOps in general, how to work with engineers, we always push them to start looking at where they've already seen success and how they can reuse that. So if I look back at thinking, okay, when I did a hands-on workshop with the teams, that really had a big uptake in people actually optimizing. Or were you sharing email reports all the time? Is that something that people really rely on to get them to be more available and aware of their own spend? Or were you entering kind of sprint meetings with them? And maybe it's something you did once and you're like, oh, that worked well. Could you use that to develop a whole year plan? Any other kind of ideas around that one?
Yeah, one thing that just kind of came to mind there was that sometimes when we look back at like past successes, maybe we can find some of the leading indicators that we saw when we did some like previous action that could help us know that we're starting to make that progress, right? When we look at, savings measurements, those tend to be, kind of like trailing indicators, like the action's already happened. We've already done that. But if we look back at like past successes, maybe just getting like a heightened focus on something, building a project plan around it, identifying the opportunities, leading indicators that, hey, things are going in the right direction. And when we did this in the past, that teed us up for success. We're on the right track.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. Are there any really good kind of things that you've seen customers do successfully recently that you think would be good to share with other people, that kind of like from our success stories that we could share with people watching today that they've seen things work well?
I don't know if I'm getting ahead of us for something we were going to talk about in a couple of minutes, but I'll share it now anyways. And I think it's that part around starting to identify specific workloads that are in focus. So, a lot of times we'll have kind of broad campaigns. We want to modernize our EC2 instances, but do we know what the big pieces are, the major workloads are? What are their release cycles? What's the timeline for them to be able to make an instance type change? And then kind of work backwards from that, so that you could sort of see out like 2024, looking ahead, what are some of the milestones that we need to work backwards from in order to make sure that adoption happens. And again, this is kind of that like connection back between, if we're a FinOps team, working back with the app teams themselves, the engineering leads, kind of building that communication so that everyone's kind of synchronized. But I think that's definitely one of the ones that helps folks get teed up for success.
Yeah, being focused, not trying to, I always use this phrase, boil the ocean, is definitely a good one. All right, let's quickly check in with the folks. Guys, have you already set your FinOps goals already in your teams, in your organizations? One for yes, two for no. I'm intrigued to see if people have been already doing this work and kind of setting the goals. So drop a number in the chat, because I wonder how many people actually do it, like have started to do this already, because it is something that, I mean, January is the time to do it, but sometimes people are planning in April, sometimes they are planning later. So other people are putting in one. Okay, so a lot of people are setting their FinOps goals, which is great. I tell you, if anybody wants to drop in the chat any of the FinOps goals they have, would love to know what people are doing. Okay, so we've done number one. I'm putting up my notes. Number one, data drives decision. Make sure that you know where you've come from. Look back at what went well. And I think the next one was kind of choose a goal and stick to it. So you kind of are alluding to this with the knowing what workloads are in scope, I think. But the idea of like having a goal and actually doing it can be very tricky. If we go back to the gym analogy, sometimes people say they want to do this goal and then they put no effort into doing this. And that is the worst type of kind of consideration. So how do you choose that goal? How do you make it achievable? And what process do you put around this? Right? You actually had a good analogy earlier. What was your analogy that you had?
Oh, geez, Steph, I don't remember what my analogy was. I don't know. I don't know what I said. What were we talking about? Were we talking about measuring progress? Were we talking
it was
about
the whack-a-mole. It was
the
like
whack-a-mole. Yeah,
that
there
was
we
it.
go.
So
yeah,
whack-a-mole. So it was the idea, I think, that when it comes to especially around cost optimization, right? Don't say in January, right, we're going to move to Graviton. And then suddenly someone said, oh, what about storage? And then you go in
Yeah.
February and you're looking at storage and you haven't finished the Graviton. And then you're like, oh, CloudWatch and compute, right sizing. And this show, look through the backlog, check out all of our YouTube videos if you want to see all the different ways you can optimize, but not always like choosing everything is going to help you. So choosing a goal and sticking with it, I think is a good one.
Yes, we could definitely lean in on a lot of gym analogies here too, because I think the other thing that happens is like the plateau, right? Where
Mm.
maybe you're not seeing that change in progress because you're working on some of the big rocks, and
Mhm.
there's kind of all these different elements of kind of tracking down, individual details. One thing we've also heard from one of the customers we were working with recently was kind of leaning in on a lot of qualitative data in addition to the quantitative savings. And they found that when they did this, they were surfacing other optimization changes that people had been making that were more difficult to track. So maybe they were reducing the overall like growth rate, and that can be a little bit tricky to track with like individual services or individual kind of like patterns within an application. So the qualitative data not only helped them find those optimizations, but it also helped them kind of track like other areas where there were lessons learned that maybe that was something that would be valuable to kind of share with other folks that could help them move faster or approach something similar or dial back to that specific workload. So I think that's another part too, is like don't dismiss some of the qualitative data that can help you with that tracking of your progress.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a great segue, which brings us on to the one we were talking about, which is what does progress actually look like? So, okay, go back. You've looked at the previous data. You've set some goals. You know what campaigns or strategies work well in your organization. But how do you actually track this overall progress? So, again, like I think tracking every little thing is very helpful. And I'll go for personal experience. I like to track everything like incrementally, and I like breaking up into small bite-sized chunks. I'll give you a very good example. When I did reInvent, a lot of people on my team know this, that when I did my reInvent last year, I had 4 sessions. And so I needed to practice a lot. And we set a goal that I had to hit 10 practices of each session before I did it. And so I was able to stay accountable by letting other people know. I had like on my whiteboard, I was ticking it off every single time. I had a nice present, which was my new Funko Pop that Andy bought me when I did it. So, and you all got lovely presentations for me. So there was a lot of really good, like I broke it down, but the progress over time, that's a good kind of, this is the end goal. This is how I achieved it. But going back to what you were saying about like incremental changes that could be like noticeable, any like ideas or specific examples of things that maybe aren't the dollar saving that people could look at?
Yeah, we had a customer we were working with recently that had a separate goal of getting engineers and developers to publish internal blogs around their cost optimization savings. And I think that's a great way to kind of do two things. One, it gets the technical details out there, so it helps
Mhm.
folks kind of overcome and learn from somebody else, but it also helped to establish like internal subject matter experts. So if this person had gone through and had some great success with adopting intelligent tiering for their workload, which was kind of the case, they now knew all the different levers and all the knobs and dials and kind of how they measured and anticipated that savings, how they put it into place, how they tracked it, and putting that content out there internally, then let other teams kind of reach out to this person as that internal subject matter expert they can lean on, that knew the organizational practices, but also technical details, and help them kind of overcome some of their optimization goals, or kind of move a little bit faster by having some added resources to lean on versus having to kind of learn it all themselves. So I think like encouraging those cultural aspects of, hey, can we get folks to create internal blogs or video recordings or content for wikis, anything like that, is a great way to encourage the behaviors that maybe are not just about like dollar savings specifically. Other stuff that kind of helps it kind of move forward.
Yeah, because we're always looking for that culture change in these situations. And before I continue, shout out Steph, your background's awesome. Thank you very much. I spent a lot of time working on it. And also, just so people are joining with kind of between us chatting, we're talking all about setting your FinOps goals. And as a reminder, make sure you stick around to the end. We'll have Richard's summary of like the top highlight points for you to make sure that you kind of caught everything in the episode. But going back to kind of what does progress look like? I love the idea of kind of, especially internally, like what else can you put out in terms of content and information is really good. How many people are doing the content and things like that? Have you got a wide range of roles who are involved? But also looking into maybe like flipping around the money one. So obviously you have dollar savings. Yes, if you save money, that is great. That is progress. That's what a lot of people are striving for. But also maybe if you're using something like QuickSight, okay, so if I take a step back, we have QuickSight, we have the dashboards on QuickSight. When it comes to charging QuickSight, there are two types of charging. You have authors and you have users or readers. Authors cost like a certain amount. I think it's like $18 if you have a subscription. That's one thing, right? So the authors, we already know they're using the dashboards. What you could do is you could track how much money you're spending on readers. So if you have deployed the Cloud Intelligence dashboards and you have let all of your developers use it, having a look at the growth of spend on it, and don't worry, it's not much. It's only up to $5 a month you'll spend on this. So just before anybody panics, but seeing how much time people are spending in the dashboard could be a great metric for you to track actual utilization of these tools. Because if you're spending time building them and using them and kind of improving them and setting up rules around them and sharing them and writing documentation and doing all this work, making sure that you have a way to track who's actually reading that information will be great, not only to see hopefully it grow over time, but also so you can show kind of senior leadership, hey, look, we deployed the dashboard in January 2023, and we've spent this much like kind of growth of usage over time. That means more people are using it, which is what you want. So different way of looking at it that I just made up.
Well, it's a good example, right? Because I think everyone has an opportunity to kind of lean in on, their domain or projects they're working on and kind of surface that cost angle of it, right? And I think just getting that kind of knowledge out there, sharing all that stuff, it sort of like just sets things into motion. And that's I think the big part about getting started at the beginning of the year is like, hey, let's get some momentum going. Let's get the snowball kind of growing and build the momentum so it gets easier as the year goes on.
Yeah, and just a shout out from a comment, greetings from Mexico. My goal this year is to get certified as an SA professional. Oh, that's hard. I always struggle with the pro exams. Any advice, recommendations? My biggest advice for passing any of the exams is do practice papers. You can find a bunch online. That is my top tip. Use them. The way I do it is I do a couple of questions, stop the exam and look at the answers and study the answers. And there are some really good ones that provide a deep explanation of why the answer is the answer. And then also, if you do full run throughs of the quiz, look at what areas you are weaker on. So if people like me who spend most of their time on cost, I'm quite good at that area, but maybe things about networking are weaker. So look at where you score lower and then use that to work backwards to make sure that you cover everything. So yeah, good luck with the exam. Let us know how you get on. Question from Cosplayer. Do you need author to manage CID? So yes, you need to have the person who like controls the dashboard and creates the dashboard is going to be an author and have the higher subscription payment. But then the readers are the ones that just see it. So just see the dashboard. And that's 30, is it? Oh Lord. I think it's 50 cents per 30 minutes, up to $5 off the top of my head. I think that's right. Oh, what's this little question? Can new version of extended Kudo CAD for a drop? Can you map it to business accounts? Yes, you can map it to business accounts. You can use row-level security to do this. I'll get Richard to grab the row-level security customization from the website to drop it in the chat for you. So yes, you could definitely do that. And also, I'll just say, if you want to learn more, then check out on the YouTube channel, Keys to AWS Optimization. If you go on there and look for the C playlist, there's a bunch of episodes on how to control it on there. Right, on to our fifth and final tip, which I think is a nice one, is get excited. I feel like Alex. I feel like I've copied her. This is something that she would say. I've definitely worked with her for so long. I'm
Yeah.
things. So get excited. So what are you guys interested in learning, Alex? Already get pumped. I
Get
love
bumped.
this.
Yeah.
What are you like? What are people in your teams excited to learn? This is the link for reliable security. What do you want to optimize and learn about? So, for example, I want to get more hands-on with Spot. Very specific. I feel like I talk a lot about it, but do I ever get to do it because I'm not on the customer side? No. So I'm going to try and set myself a goal of learning more about Spot. And I'm excited to learn about these areas. But yeah, John, how do you speak to your customers about yourself about getting excited about these things?
Yeah, I think just sharing some of the different kind of like hands-on labs and stuff. I'm going to see if I can find a link here before we kind of hit the top of the hour. But some of the workshops that we've had around some of the Gen AI stuff, it's been really fun to get your hands dirty on that, kind of play around with it, and then track costs that are associated, and just kind of get back in the motion again, like kind of going back to momentum. We're working on a project with a team member, and we've got really good like kind of builder community within optics, and just kind of getting your hands dirty, getting back into building, tracking costs, looking at things from different angles, sharing them with teammates. That is what excites me personally. And there's been a ton of cool workshops out there just in the past couple of months that I think have been a lot of fun. So if you're looking for a way to kind of dive right back in and just maybe have a fun project you can share with folks, definitely recommend that.
Yeah, the Gen AI stuff is so many things going on. Check out Party Rock. I was playing with that today.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Getting excited and getting other people excited about this. So sometimes when looking at the word of FinOps and cost optimization, it can feel like a bit of a draining topic because you're having to tell people that they can't spend as much money, they need to control what they're doing, they need to tag, they need to look at data. And that does not sound necessarily like the fun, exciting life of a developer that they often want to do. But sometimes, like, of course, we all know there are these controls and these things are there for a reason, and it's important to tell them why. But can you find ways of making it more enjoyable in your organization? Can you do some gamification? We've had Capital One on before where they talk about using cake as an example to kind of encourage people to do it. That is a great way, kind of looking at Hall of Shame. Hall of Shame? What is it? Hall of Shame. What's the other one? Hall of Fame.
Hall of Fame, yeah.
Hall of Fame. Love the Hall of Fame. So like, can you do it that? Can you make it like something that's like a show and tell element that you get people excited to share what they've been doing? And John's right, like it's the start of the year. People at the start of the year are ready. They are, as Alex said, they're pumped to do things. So really capitalize on this and get people to commit to stuff. So can you say like, okay, in a month's time, we're going to do a showcase of optimization. Come and share your stories and let us know what you're doing. And people like, yeah, in the chat, kind of 100% gamification. Public recognition is speaks so loudly. Yeah, we love that. And it could be as simple as an email chain at the end, like, well done this person for doing something. And immediately you feel good. And it is nice to kind of be recognized something great that you've done.
Yeah, and Steph, I mean, one thing you mentioned to me long time ago that I think landed really well was like dedicating that time to just focusing on this. Take a half a day. Don't underestimate what you can do in half a day or even 3 hours of time where folks can kind of block that off, look in their environment, maybe come up with a couple of ideas that they want to kind of prioritize, or if there's something new that's interesting, take a couple of hours in order to let people focus on it. And definitely don't underestimate that time because you can do a lot in relatively short amount of time.
Yeah. And just on a quick, so on like we'll get Richard's summary up in a second, but just to summarize the kind of the five things. So data, so starting at 0, don't rush. Make sure that you spend your time choosing your goals carefully. But number 1, data drives decision. Use that historical information to make sure your goals are achievable. Set a goal and stick to it. It is important that you actually try and achieve these goals that you've given yourself. Look backwards at what went well, what strategies, campaigns, things that you've done last year that worked well can you implement into 2024 so that you can repeat the success? Make sure you know what progress looks like, whether it is $1 saving, or is it content, or is it anything in your teams that can actually show small gradual increments. And get excited, get pumped, enjoy doing FinOps and all the exciting things that comes with it. All right, over to Richard's summary. Let's see what he came up with and took in between our top 5 points. Who wants to bring that up? Here we go. Lots of analogies. It's January. It's always gym time. We love it. Data-driven decision, classic. Non-monetary progress can lead to long-term monetary effect. Oh, I like that. Richard always comes up with good slogans that I wanna print out and put on cards. Thanks, Richard. Awesome. All right. That is it for today. Thank you so much for joining. Next week, we'll be talking about the new CFM tips and launch that has happened to give you playbooks for your optimization. So make sure you tune